So hello and welcome to this EIFL webinar, Ask Me Anything About DSpace. And thanks a lot for sending your questions in advance. We have 4 excellent DSpace experts, Fred and David from Uganda Christian University, Daniel from, Daniel, you should help me. Your organization has a long name.
Yeah. It's the Nelson Mandela African Institution of Science and Technology.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And Felix Rop is from University of Nairobi. And we structured our today's session according to the topics. So we'll start with getting started with DSpace repository installations, prerequisites, software configurations, etc. Then we'll talk about management, metadata, data entry, usage statistics, DSpace integrations, etc. Then we'll talk about DSpace sustainability, backup, restore, upgrades. And then we'll talk about DSpace customizations. And I'm recording everything, so I'll share a recording link. And Fred is our first speaker, but he's gone again. So let's give him a sec to rejoin because he's having some internet issues. And when he's here, we'll start. And thanks, Mohammed, for letting me know that sound is good. So what do you say, David? Shall we wait for Fred or shall we start with you?
I think we're in the same boat, pretty much. Because I'm on the phone, but my slides are on the laptop, which I was trying to connect and just failed.
Mm-hmm.
So unless I speak without slides, which is not very good.
Mm-hmm. So there was a question, does your panel include DSpace 7? So we've only seen DSpace 7 in like as a presentation at Open Repositories in June. And then there were some recent presentations in North America, DSpace meeting. And what I'll do, I'll share links to slides and recording from that North America presentation about DSpace 7, which explains the difference between current version of DSpace and DSpace 7 and where DSpace 7 are, etc. But we won't be able to really touch upon that because we don't have hands-on experience with it. So I'll share the links in the chat and then I'll also email you them.
Okay.
So I don't know, Felix, do you want to start with customization? Because that's you seem to be the most stable one in this group.
Sorry. Oh my God, this is not good. And yet, I think Felix can start. I just hope that we can. Yes.
Yeah. So let's start from the other end of our program. Let's start with customizations. Are you here, Felix? Because you're muted. Maybe that's the case. Let me try to unmute you.
Yes.
Excellent. And then maybe you can mute yourself, David. And I'm muting also. So over to you, Felix, now.
So hello, guys. I'd like to take you through discuss. Are you able to see my slide?
Yes.
My slide is there.
Yes, we can see them.
Okay. There were a few questions, like 2 questions on DSpace customization. I'd have wished to started with DSpace installation because it would be good for you guys to know how to install DSpace so that you get to know how to customize. But nevertheless, I'll start with when it comes to DSpace, what actually can you customize? From experience, I've noted that many would like to customize the look and feel, the submission steps, the submission forms, so that DSpace can do several things. Like, for example, maybe you don't want just to submit research articles or cases. You'd like to have different fields. So you need to change the submission forms. Okay. I would like to start by sharing what I can call a best practice, where I will say you should do all the customizations at the source directory. Now, when you install DSpace, you ideally have 3 folders. Remember, DSpace is an open source software, so you download. When you download it in a folder. And in many cases, that folder by default is called the installation, the source directory. It's called the source directory, where the source code lives. That's where the source code lives. And in many documentations online, it is called DSpace source. Then we have the installation directory. When you combine the DSpace source, the content after compilation go to the DSpace installation directory. And the compilation from DSpace source to DSpace installation directory is done by Marvin. So Fred would have shown you how to combine the DSpace directory. So when I say do all customizations on the DSpace directory, source directory, I mean you do them at the source directory. Then when you compile your source directory with all your customizations. Then lastly, we have the web deployment directory. That's what runs now on Tomcat. That's under what we call web apps. So the server, which is called Tomcat, will look at the web deployment directory. So everything here, we are dealing with files. So we are dealing with files. Now, when you are doing customizations, what you just need to do or to know are the files to deal with. Which files are you going to edit in order to realize the customizations you want? So, for the input forms, DSpace comes with a default input form. I mean the form where you enter the metadata, like for example, the author, the title. So it comes with the basic fields, but you may want to change the names of the fields. Maybe you don't want the author to be called an author. Maybe you want another name. Maybe you want to edit the fields. Okay? Maybe you want to add more fields, or maybe you want to remove some fields. Now, I've realized recently that people would like to use this space for different purposes. Like for example, there's a project I'm doing here in Kenya, where they would like to use this to handle some records in the hospital, patient records. You realize that they don't need other. Maybe they need the doctor. They don't need, maybe they need something like the patient name instead of other, okay? Maybe they need other new fields like the age. Maybe they need other fields like the sex, etc. So you realize that you are faced with a situation where you need to change the fields. You like to adjust the form, the default form. So the first thing you need to do is to define the field by adding metadata schema. So you log into the DSpace as admin, and the registries, you select metadata, then select Dublin core, then you add the field you want. For example, if you want to add reviewer, for those who are using this, we don't have a field for a reviewer, or we don't have a field for maybe the supervisor who supervises the project. So, I don't know if you can see our repository. Irina?
No, I can still see your slides. Not.
Oh, you don't see the.
No, not
Okay.
the repository.
Okay.
So maybe you have to close slides and.
I stop share there, and then
and share screen again.
Then I share this.
Yeah, now we can see it.
So, when you log in as administrator, you want to define new fields. The first thing you need to do is to go to the registries, then you go to metadata. And you select Dublin core. You're using Dublin core, so you select Dublin core. Then you have now the options here of adding the fields. So if you want to add if you look down here, the existing fields, like the one for the order, is dc.contributor.order. If I want to add dc.contributor.viewer, so I type here contributor, then I type here, okay. Then I can give some notes, and then I add new metadata. I can say names of viewers. Then I say add new metadata field. So it has been added successfully. So when I go down, I should find here it is. That's step one. So we have added the field, the schema, the registry. So the database now knows that there is a field called viewer. So that's what we've just done. Then the next thing is now you go and log into the backend, and you go to the DSpace source, then config, then input forms.xml. So I'll stop that.
Yeah, that one is really hard to see on this.
Oh, it's hard to see.
Yeah, it's too small.
Okay. Let's go back. Let me use this. So if you go to,
Or maybe tell us what you are doing there, because it's.
Yeah, like we are navigating to the folder where we have this file, input forms.xml. Okay, it's usually under DSpace config, the configuration folder. Then we go to input forms.xml. And remember, we need to do this in the installation folder. So you will see this. I don't know if that one is visible. Then contributor, reviewer, then the label you should put as reviewer. So that's the label which will be visible. So you just copy the existing code, you duplicate, and then you just change. And after doing that, you will find, you'll be able to find your and we will go to submissions. When you submit to a new item, you'll find it somewhere. You'll find it among these fields. So you can also remove other fields, like you can disable fields. Yeah. So the next question, I've not done. We have also customization of the look and feel. That's just about colors. So you have to go to the theme, then you go to styles, then you go to the CSS files. You can change the colors and you can add pictures. But the next customization I want us to look at is customizing communities and television. One of the questions was, how do you have different communities having different pictures, different colors? If I can reframe that question, the question was customization of community list include pictures per community. So what you do for that is you need to, if you want different communities to have different photos, different colors, then you need to create a theme for each collection. So what you do, you make a copy of an existing theme. Then you modify the name, maybe to be like, if I want a different community for different customizations for community A, then I can make a copy of let's say Mirage 2, then I call it even Mirage 3, or I give it any name. Then I modify the CSS file, and then I give it a name. Then under the theme, we have a directory called a file called sitemap.xmap. So under this, you look for the global variables, then you define the name of the theme path. So you type the name here. When you are done with that, then you just update the theme path so that you have something like this. Actually, the theme which is used by DSpace, they usually remove the handle. If you remove the handle, then it means it will apply to all communities. But if you want to restrict a theme to a specific community, then you come here and then you go to the community. Maybe I should stop this and then each and every community has a different identity. Like this community has this one is the path 11 to 95 1. If you go to another community like this, it changes 11 95 772. So if you want this community to have a specific theme defined, then you will come and adjust the path. I should just copy that. And so I do the. I will copy and put it here. So this file is xmlui.xconf. It's also in this case folder, config folder. This one, and you look for this line. You copy, you paste. Then this name is what you have here in the sitemap.xmap. So it will mean that the theme you have defined here, the theme you've defined will be used by this community. So this community, which has this identity, will use that theme. So the other question was, somebody asked, what is a custom code? Okay, I didn't catch the objective of the person who asked that question, but from the name custom code, it could mean maybe a code which you have done it according to what you want to fit your needs. You have custom. So maybe I don't know if the person who asked that question could do some clarification, but according to me, something which is customized, like a custom code. It's a code which you've customized, you've done it to suit your needs or according to your needs. That was the other question. So ideally, that's what I have prepared for today. Though this space can be customized even more. Okay? This space can be customized more to fit any of your needs. Yes. So maybe I'll stop there, and maybe there are questions I can respond.
Thanks a lot, Felix. And if you have any questions, please type them in a Q&A or in a chat. Questions about customization specifically. And then Felix will either write them in will either answer them in writing or he'll speak again. So now let's maybe try to start from the beginning with Fred about how to start.
Oh yes. Looking at the time, I have managed to summarize my slides into just 5 slides, I think, which are, let me share my screen. Okay. Are you able to see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Felix, for the customization one. You must have learned a lot from it. For the installation, I have just grouped. There were about 3 questions, which I was able to summarize as just installation, pre-installation requirements, and configurations. So I will start with the installation. Now, the requirements for installing DSpace are very basic. Since it's open source, they really try to use everything that is free in order for you to have your DSpace running. For the software, since DSpace is running on Java programming language, you can literally run DSpace on any operating system, from Linux distros, Microsoft Windows, or Mac OS X. We recommend Linux distros because the DSpace support community, majority of people really use the Linux distro. So if you install on Microsoft or Mac OS X, you might have a smaller community to support you. But the Linux community is big, and I would recommend people to use Linux as their operating system. For the database, PostgreSQL, you could also use Oracle, but the recommended one is PostgreSQL because it's free and the support community is also big. So people will be able to respond to your questions faster when you use Postgre. The servlet container is Apache Tomcat. There are others you could use, but also looking at the number of people available to support you, I would advise that you use Tomcat for your installation. Okay. I lost my connection there. Sorry about that. So for the essential requirements I'm going to use DSpace 6.3. I've already talked about the operating systems you can run on any. Java services that you require, we have the JDK 7 or 8. You could use Maven is for the installation, sorry, for the building. Felix talked about it when you're creating the .war files. So you need to install Maven on your server. We also have Ant for deployment. We have a documentation which will demonstrate how to use all these. I had a bigger slide which was explaining these things into detail, but due to time, I'll just go through the summary. The relational database management system, Postgre 9.5 or above will work for you very well. But then also you need to enable the PG crypto extension for it to run well with 6.3. The other versions are the 5.0 and above, you can use without the PG crypto enabled. If you're using Oracle, it's still okay. On the DSpace wiki, there is a clear documentation on how you can install Oracle Relational Database Management System. You need also to install JIT for the code version control. This is especially needed if you're using the Mirage 2 theme for your repository. For the steps in in installation, you can get DSpace from the DuraSpace website. They have a link which connects to the GitHub for DSpace, or you could even go to the DSpace GitHub release page directly. I have some links here I'll share later. For the installation guides, you can go to the DuraSpace wiki, which gives clear instructions. And we also have a more detailed instruction on how to install DSpace. We have it on our repository. The links are there, and we'll also share with you publicly, maybe through the chat. for the essential configurations, after you've installed your DSpace, you would want to have some basic configurations done before you can make it public. We have the handle service, which is for preservation purposes. I think one of the presenters will also talk about it into detail. I just wanted to demonstrate it technically how to install, but due to time, I'll refer you to our documentation, which is into detail how you can set it up from the beginning up to when you have to acquire your handle service from a service provider. We have links to the different service providers for the handle service also. Then the OAI server, also how to configure it. It's also available in our documentation. Search engine optimization to increase your visibility on the web. We also have clear set instructions there on our documentation. Another important configuration is the statistics and web traffic, which you'll be using the analytics tools. David will talk about the different analytic tools available, Google Analytics, Matomo, and the others. Also, our documentation has clear instructions on how you can go about that. Email configuration, also wanted to do it practically, but due to time, you will use our documentation. In case you have questions or you don't understand something from the documentation, we'll leave our contacts available so you can reach us anytime, and we have that set up for you. I think let me stop there and then maybe just answer questions after. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Fred. And I wanted to flag that the documents that Fred mentioned, how to install DSpace, is a very detailed step-by-step installation guide. So even me, who is not an expert, can read it and do it. So it's really good, and we'll share the link with you. And please type your questions, if any, to Fred. David, are you here? Do you want to take over?
Yeah. Right.
Thanks.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone.
And I guess, Fred, you have
David,
to
Bukenya.
stop sharing your screen so that David could share it. Thanks. And sorry, David. Are you here, David? Because I lost your sound. I don't know, how is it for others?
I guess he's lost.
Hello? Am I
Yeah.
good?
Yeah, now you're back.
Okay, sorry. I'll just...
And you'll have to speak up, because
Yes,
your
of
sound is a
course.
little bit quiet. Yeah, I don't know. Shall we continue with you, Daniel? And then I'll let David speak when he reconnects.
No problems.
Can
I?
Yes, I think that would be the best. Sorry for jumping in from topic to topic. So Daniel will talk about DSpace sustainability, backup, restore, upgrades, and other issues. Over to you, Daniel.
Yes, so yeah, I'm actually going to talk about the sustainability part of the digital repository. And I have some very few slides that I want to share. Yeah. No. Okay, now.
But we still can't see your slides.
Yeah, I'm going to share the slides just now. Like, oh. No. How come I can't see how to share?
So you click on this green.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Share.
Okay.
Share
Got
scene.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and if you want, you can click presentation mode. Then it would be bigger. Yeah, like play. Yeah. Cool. Thanks.
Yeah. So I'm going to talk about the upgrades of the DSpace. And yeah, my name is Daniel, and that's where I'm coming from, the institution. Now, some of the questions which were posed by participants as seen on the slides, and basically if you look at them, most of them, they are almost talking about the same thing, upgrades and migration, which and database, and backup and restore, which basically those are things which are related. Yeah. So I have some very few slides again, and just to share the light, and probably, and at the end I'm going to provide the reference where you can go and read some more. Now, before you do the upgrade or migration, these are some of the things that you need to consider. First of all, you need to back up your database. You see, and by some days, like someone called me, he had a backup, but he didn't back up the asset store where all the PDFs are stored. So I'm going to tell you this so that at least you can have a very good backup and be sure that you're going to have all your data when migrating to another version of the DSpace. And after backing up your asset store where everything like the PDFs are being kept by the system, then you need to back up your configurations. If you have that, if like you need the configuration, so you can do, because with the configuration you can always do it again, but to save time and energy you just need to do the backup. Then you have the customization. You see, like my friend from University of Nairobi, Felix, was presenting. He was talking about customizing the form, the input forms and all that. And it is worth it not to repeat the same thing again and again, but just make sure before you do the upgrade or the migration, just take whatever that you think is possible and have it as the backup. Then you would want maybe to keep the statistics from the old system into to the new system. Now this will depend, but basically the text in red, like these ones, I'm trying to share like the exact location of the file that you need to back up. Okay. A simple copy of data directory should give you a point of recovery. Like if you have your database, you have your asset store and configurations and all other customizations, you are good to go, to be honest. And on my side, I normally keep the backup for only two things: the database and the asset store. The rest I can do it. I don't care if I lose them anyway, which could also be bad. Requirements, because now after doing the backup, you would want maybe to upgrade. Look at the version of the DSpace that you want to use, then check the required softwares that you need to install. I think Odongo talked about the prerequisite softwares for installation of DSpace, and this is exactly the same. And like if you want to upgrade to version 6 of the DSpace, then this is what you need to have, because these are the requirements, the prerequisites. Yeah. So the step number 1, you have to ensure that your database between the versions of the DSpace that you want to migrate, make sure that you have the compatibility issue being sorted out between the two databases, where you're coming and where you're going. okay? Because like where I think from DSpace, is it DSpace 5 or DSpace 6? They have this PG crypto, which is for basically for security issues within the database. Then that has changed from the previous versions of DSpace. So you need to figure out how you're going to fix this, which is very easy. Again, I'll share some more information on the last slide. The step 2 is to download just get a fresh version of DSpace from dspace.org, or you just go straight from just get it straight from GitHub repository. And I said not, if you download DSpace, do not unpack on top of your existing installation, which means you need to have 2 folders. One is for live system and another one for the upgrade. Okay, so do not unpack the downloaded version of your DSpace into existing folder of a DSpace. Now, by the way, on unpacking, because I'm just going to give you a very a brief introduction on how things are happening. After downloading on this step, make sure that you just do the rest of unpacking the script and compiling. I'll show you how you can do that on the last slide, because I'm having a reference at the end. Remember, I told you to back up the customizations, yeah? And basically, this is where you can go and put all your customization for the user interface and configuration. And basically, we are talking about the 2 user interface, which is Java and XML user interface. And this directory here, it is where you are going to put all those customizations from the old system. Number 4, you need to build your DSpace now. Remember, you're not building from the old DSpace folder, but the one that you downloaded. And this is the command. Okay. And the above command will compile the DSpace source code and build its installer. You'll find the installer on this directory. This step is exactly the same, like just like how you do the initial installation, the fresh installation. Then you go to this directory. Stop the Tomcat, because if you're having the Tomcat running and there are some activities which are connected to Tomcat while compiling, probably you're going to face some problems. So you need to stop the Tomcat. Then you update now the DSpace installation. And remember, on step 4, we compiled with MVN. And now here we're just going to do the updates in the downloaded. After compiling on step 4, then now here we're going to upgrade the DSpace. The end result of the above step is the new updated version of DSpace. Mind you, at that time you're working with you're having 2 folders inside. The first folder is for DSpace old, and the second folder is for DSpace updated. Then you need to do the update of the configuration. If you have the configuration file that you want to use from the previous version, then you can just copy the setting into the new version. But the only problem that I think you might face is probably don't do it straight. Just read on the things that have changed from the first version, especially on the configuration, because there are so many things which are changing from one version of DSpace to the next. Then number 7, you need to deploy the DSpace web application to Tomcat. remember we stopped the Tomcat, then we are now deploying. Some more steps, you just restart the Tomcat servlet container, then you do the reindexing of the solar statistics. But mind you, most of the things that you're going to do is to get some of these data from the old system, like the the statistics, the configuration file, the database, and all that. You just need to, like, from the old system, you do the Postgres dump, then and the restore later. I won't go into detail because I'm having some more. I have a link to some of these tutorials, and and now this is the. I mean, like, if you hate long steps, follow the following simple steps: backup your data, asset store, configuration and customization, do a fresh installation. I hope you know what I mean. Do a fresh installation of the DSpace into your server, then migrate data back into the server. These are just like, if you don't want to go through all those steps, because in the documentation we have like 14 steps. You will see them, but with this one you just need to. You just need 3 steps: backup the database, asset store, configuration and customization, do a fresh installation, then put everything back. I remember I used this method when I was working with University of Nigeria. They had some issues with their DSpace, and this is what I did. Yeah, thank you. And some more like this is the reference, and if you go to the Stellenbosch University wiki, you're going to get a very good way of backing up. But basically what you need to back up, it is the database and asset store. If you want to have like everything, because sometimes people want to back up only the database and they forget that if you forgot the asset store, then you'll have the structure, but you won't have the PDF files. Thank you so much. Irina.
Thanks a lot, Daniel. That was great. There was a question. Let me read it. Constance was asking, when migrating from a prior digital library, does DSpace allow smooth migration? I have to start building the collection from start. And I think when people referred to digital library in the questions, many of them meant Greenstone. So I don't know if you have any experience with migrating from Greenstone to DSpace.
From Greenstone to DSpace, no, I haven't tried it, and I don't have experience on it, to be honest, because I have a feeling, because if you look at the file structure between the two systems, it's a bit different, yeah? Because in DSpace, the way how they keep the PDF files is quite different from how DSpace keep the files, the PDF files. But I haven't tried it. Yeah.
Thanks. Maybe if others have had experiences, you can write in the chat. And there is also a question from Odongo. How did you answer the question on migrating from GSPUI to XML UI?
Okay. Basically, if you look at DSpace, the structure of a DSpace is a bit. It is well structured, I should say, because you have level 1 where you have the database, and on top of the database you have the script, and then you have the two user interfaces like the JSP and and the XML, they're all utilizing the same thing. Like they're all accessing the same database. And so if you create the database, I mean, you create your repository on I mean, you customized the repository on XML user interface. You can easily switch between the two interface. And there are some of the institutions, even today, they're having two interfaces running like at the same time. So I think migrating from from one interface to another, that should not be a problem. It's very smooth, and DSpace can handle that without a problem.
Maybe Irina.
Yes.
Maybe I can demonstrate that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah,
sure. That
You
would be
can
great.
see our repository here
Yeah.
is running on XML.
Yeah.
If I just want to switch to JSPY, I type JSPY. So, you know, it opens another interface, but with all the data intact. So you don't lose any data. You can see all the communities, all the collections. Yeah. So it's a matter of just switching. It has to do with the web applications only, so it doesn't. Sorry?
Yeah, I was saying the example is very, I mean, it's nice that you've demonstrated that. And on top of that, you can create, like you can upload a document on JSP, and the same document will be visible on the other side also. So there's no problem.
Maybe also to add on your presentation, Daniel.
Yes.
Apart from the asset store and the database, I think also it's good to back up the logs. The logs.
The logs. Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks a lot, Daniel and Felix. So if you have any other questions to Felix, you can type them and we'll try to answer. So let's have one more try with David. Are you here, David?
Hello.
Hi, yeah, we can hear you.
Am I clear?
Yes, yes, you're clear.
Okay.
So to show your slides, if you want, you have to click this green share.
Yes.
Yeah, it's coming, and you can click presentation mode. Then it will be a little bit bigger. So we can also see them as it is, but as they are, but they are a little bit small. But if you want, you can also talk with this mode. If switching to another mode isn't easy.
Let's try one more time, just a minute. Isn't this thing coming?
Yeah, maybe talk like this, and we'll share the slides with everyone after the meeting.
I'm trying to get the presentation.
Yes, now it works.
Okay. Hello, everyone. How are you? Sorry. I have internet problems this way, so I hope it doesn't keep breaking. Can you all hear me? I hope. I'm David Bukenya. My presentation, I think it's pretty wide because it's pretty much about. Just a moment. Now my PowerPoint is.
No, it's moving. We can see your
Okay.
second slide.
Thank you. Let me just, yes. But just to say, mine is a bit long because it's the questions that I took on are the questions that were so general. When somebody was asking about, okay, how do I run a repository? How do I start one? And then I realized, I think it just might be wise to speak in a general sense about the DSpace function, which of course Fred, Felix, and Daniel have hinted on, but just in more general ways, and also to answer a few queries about the statistics and so on. But just to say, for those who are just starting up with DSpace, certainly it is a tool that is built to cover your digital assets, pretty much. It's an online tool, and so in it will be able to capture digital data in various formats, and that's very, very important for us to appreciate. It will index this for you and preserve it. And in the long run, it will be creating visibility and accessibility in the long run. So the DSpace structure, hello? I'm getting some feedback. The DSpace structure fundamentally is in, you might want to call it a three-tier system or three-tier structure. You will have the DSpace. It's built with communities. It has collections that always hold the items, and the items have files and mostly files and what they call bundles, or bit streams and bundles. So that is the basic structure of the DSpace, and that pretty much runs your repository. The repository also will be able to navigate and perform discovery for you. That is running, it has a good search facility. It has communities in which the items reside. Just to say that DSpace has a very, very wide capacity of accommodating different types of files. So pretty much your media, your images, your data, patents, and so on can be held in DSpace. Particularly, I think the important bit are the bit streams, which are the files, pretty much the objects that we always handle and archive. And in here, just to say that DSpace does have a bitstream format registry, which you can always visit to check out which particular file formats are acceptable, but the range is quite wide. Something also that's important is the optimization for indexing. Obviously, when we do create the platform and put and deposit items in it, we need it to be searched and we need it to be found online. So optimizing Google indexing becomes very, very, very important. So one thing is that DSpace has a very close relationship with Google Scholar and the general Google search, and they do help actually in ensuring that DSpace is well optimized for Google. I've added a link down there from a previous Uganda webinar where we looked at Google Scholar indexing, and I think you'll find it very useful because it provides several tips on how to actually work your metadata and ensure that your repository is free of errors that would be a problem to Google in terms of indexing. Google also supports modern, basically, browsers. Now, particularly, I want to discuss metadata. Metadata is a very important aspect of DSpace, and I know there were some questions about this, but just quickly, here we're looking at a generally known definition, which is data about data, or information about information. And in a nutshell, that would describe metadata. But in layman's terms, basically metadata is used to describe things. So in DSpace, we have metadata that is built to basically describe the items that we deposit in the system. And this metadata can be really applied at different levels. The community, which is the topmost level, the collections, items, and bit streams, all the way down to the files. There are, I think, 3 major metadata types. One is metadata that is descriptive, and this is the one that I think we're most familiar with. It's the one that describes attributes of an item. And here we talk about a title, we talk about an author, we talk about a subject, the size, and so on. Now, when we talk about this type of metadata, it is built upon a particular standard. That's the qualified Dublin core metadata, which I'll see a little more in a bit. This default scheme actually can be found in more detail if you go, which I'll show you in a bit as well, in a live repository. So, but you can go and check it out in your repository. There's administrative data, which is or metadata, which is also captured by the system. And some of this, unlike the descriptive, which is input by the user, the administrative metadata is mostly input by the system automatically, such as recording the origin of an item, particularly probably the name of the person who created that item, or the metadata of the item, and it could put a date and timestamp. Also, there's some structure metadata. Basically, this is about bit streams and their relation, bit streams basically, and how they relate to each other. And so DSpace would have the capacity to create that metadata as well. Now, just a little bit about the standards. The main standard used by DSpace is Dublin Core, as I said earlier. And one thing is, why it's called qualified is because this sorry about that. Sorry, this system, or this system is a schema, which pretty much means a structure, has different elements, pretty much about 15, which we're going to look at in a bit, and then has qualifiers. These qualifiers are pretty common bibliographic lingo that are attached to refine the different elements therein to enable description better. So you'll have the Dublin core with 15 basically major elements, and then you will have various qualifiers that will always be attached to those to define the metadata much further. But just to say that what's very important about metadata is that this structure is a standard. And why we have to take note of such a standard is because standards help interoperability. The interconnection and basically exchange of information between platforms. And this today is very important. And so having standard metadata is more important than ever. So the Dublin core is one of those standards, but also that is one that is one aspect of the metadata. But the other aspect is how we input the metadata as say, catalogers. So that is another element. And so with that, would say that you have to try to work to ensure the metadata is always as comprehensive as it can possibly get. And there are standards that are coming up to further refine the existing major standards. And we particularly recently, there was a standard from that was being drafted by EIFL, LibSense, and the Confederation the core Confederation of, sorry, I forgot something, repositories. And so what this is really doing is that it's creating a general standard and prescriptions for how metadata should be entered. And so here I give examples from there about, say, the author. And in there, you find that what they prescribe is that whenever you enter, say, an author, the author metadata, it pretty much has to follow a certain pattern, which has to be the same every time you do it. I remember here in Uganda, we had a problem where, okay, we don't call our academic supervisors or the academic supervisors advisors. So at one university, the repository teams were entering metadata for supervisor as an author. And that created a bit of a problem. So eventually they did standardize it, and so now they can enter it as an advisor. So it's very important to actually follow some of these key standards. So this is a link to actually the metadata guidelines for the African repositories. You can follow that, and you should find, I think, that document rather useful. Also, there's a bit of authority control. Authority control is about also standards, ensuring that indeed authors and titles are entered the proper way. Okay, so it adds to the element of choice. Creative Commons is important. This is about really about ownership, intellectual property, and usage. So DSpace does support these Creative Commons that offer licenses, different types of licenses that are very important, that give the different authors, depending on how they want their work used, gives them latitude to enable further access. I think somebody talked about the handles, but handles are very, very important for long-term access to basically our items in our repositories. So in our configurations, handles are very, very important to always configure well and use. Obviously, DSpace uses the handle system that is provided by the Corporation of National Research Initiative in the US, and it is not free, you have to pay for it. But it's not too much. It's about $50 for registration and another $50 for a year, so it's about $100. And then thereafter, it's $50 a year to sustain that subscription. But they're very important for basically providing long-term access and what we would call a permanent reference to a particular item. They also offer actually an element of resolution, just to be sure that your handle actually can always be, because the way it works is that the handle registry does keep a copy of your work, that particular handle, so you can always have access to it. Getting content into DSpace is one of the major elements. I think that we shall look at it briefly in a live demo, and so would probably the workflows. Workflows are very important because they're really about what someone can do in a system and how procedures run. So you find that in a workflow, you can set someone to accept or reject or edit metadata for a particular item. Yes, just more about workflows. Getting content out of DSpace. Yes, we need to also configure our systems to be able to harvest or to be harvested from. And this is very important using the Open Archives initiative. It also has an element of supervision and collaboration. User management is one key element that is very core for DSpace. And this is about the people who use DSpace. There are probably two major types of people. There are those who are not registered in the system, but can use the system, and those are always anonymous. Then there are those who actually registered and have some privileges. So those are called e-people. And also to further give more privileges, DSpace uses groups. So when e-people are created, and by that it's just being registered with the system, it means that you can be assigned to a group with particular privileges. And of course, the information that DSpace will keep will be simply an email address, your name, your password, and the collection in which you are affiliated. DSpace also has the capacity to actually provide alerts for deposits that go in there. We talked about groups. We're going to see that in a bit. Authentication is, of course, very important for access control. Authorization is also about policies and what actions an e-person can do in the system, such as whether you can read, whether you can actually remove, you can edit, and so on. These are some of the examples of the actions that can be taken: to add, remove, default read, default item read. So here, either you get permission to submit items, and this is very important, or you can actually be allowed to read or not. Usage metrics, yes. There were several questions about statistics. Yes, certainly, DSpace does come with a default inbuilt tool called Solar, and that tool would obviously, if well configured, would provide page views and file downloads. We'll give you statistics for those. And I think we're going to look at that in a bit as well. Yes, it's just more information. And also it has system statistics, basically pretty much about the number of items archived and so on. Logins, license rejections, and the works. Reports, yes, these are key. DSpace will give you monthly reports, or you can have yearly reports in total. Now, there's more to statistics than just Solar, and if well configured for further discoverability, we just talked about Google indexing. So if you actually register with Google Analytics, which is pretty much a web traffic analytical tool, you will actually be quite enhanced in terms of monitoring real-time traffic and visitors to your repository. The same is with Matomo, formerly Puic. Matomo pretty much does the same thing. There's always a raging debate about the two. Matomo being free, Google not so quite. But you can have a free end to it, but it has limitations. Matomo also, you can use it free, but it also has some limitations in its own right. But generally the Google Analytics tool is more widely used, probably because it's more popular. But pretty much you will get pretty much the same information thereabouts. Also, readership activity maps are becoming quite popular for a general overview and impact assessment. These just show pretty much a geographic spread of who, from where, and what exactly is being accessed from your repository. I think it's a pretty cool tool. There's one by bpress, but it's proprietary. But also, we're still working it out with Fred, but certainly I think when we do work it out, we'll get back to you on that one, and we shall include it in our technical tool. It's a connection with Google Analytics, because you'll need such an analytical tool to connect to the map. So, but it's a pretty cool tool to look at. And then also, which I find very, very interesting, simply in our administrative tool, we have a current activity element where you can quickly always look at what you're working on. Sorry, who's accessing your site. There was a question about improving your researcher profile. There's many ways, but just quickly, social media, pretty much, but particularly the academic tools, academic social tools, such as ResearchGate, Mandela, and so on. And then registering for OCID. And also it's important to configure this in your DSpace, because DSpace does allow you to configure that. And for this, pretty much, you would allow your authors who are depositing in your repository to standardize their names and at least access to their work. So it's a pretty easy tool to use and register for. But also, we need to encourage our authors to be more familiar with research metrics. Just pick interest in general impact, citations, counting tools, and so on. Then one sort of thing is always, when we go open access, obviously the issue of predatory publishers always comes in. So knowing how to avoid them, going probably the check, think, submit is always important. And that in that way, you should find a way or a channel in which you can avoid the predatory publishers. Because when you publish there, chances are you'll get quite embarrassed. Well, that was just about it. Just quickly,
Thanks a lot, David.
yeah, no, just a minute, please. Just a minute. Just a minute, please. Can you see the screen?
No, we still see your slides. I think you have to stop
slide.
sharing and then share again.
Okay. Just a minute.
We had the same issue with Felix, I think. Just stop sharing now and then share again when you have, yes, what you want to show.
Coming up. Oh, stop share here, sorry. Yes. Here. Yes, this one. Yeah.
Yes, we can see it now.
Yeah, sorry. Now, so this is at Uganda Christian University. We have configured Matomo to basically help us track our traffic. Somebody was interested in real-time traffic tracking, and just to say, so when you install it and connect it to your repository, you will at least have a fairly decent range of elements that you can play with. So this is the main dashboard here. And as you can see, you can check the visits in real time and over the time here. And there's a visitors map right there. And pretty much, if you go down to the visitors, you can check their logs. You can check their logs in here. where they're from. In real time, you can check on them pretty much where they're from and what tools they're using. And then there's also a map, which I did talk about. That map, the read activity map. So you can see dots and shows you pretty much who's accessing what from where. Though this one, I think there's some data that is not here. Pretty much, we should see which title is being read, or which item is being downloaded or something like that. So so I think this tool is, in a way, helps us to keep track, but also obviously is the Solar, which is in the system. So this one is our repository, and you can see it shows some views right there for particular items, and it can show this is the general view, but also for a particular item, such as this item, it can show you pretty much visits per month, which particular files, and from which countries and which cities. And we think that's a pretty decent way of actually keeping track. But also what I find interesting, I hope I'm still logged on here, is the, where are we? Is the control panel. Sorry, let me just log in quickly. Is the control panel and the research activity tool. I mean, it has a limit in terms of how many pages you can see, but it's also pretty decent. You can actually see in real time who's in your system and for how long they've been in there. And that's a way of actually monitoring your the activity going on in your repository. For the benefit of those who actually are not familiar, pretty much this panel here is very important. On your right, people are asking about how do you put items in there. Pretty much, in the first place, you need to have built communities, okay, into which actually and a structure with a collection. So when you have done that and built a structure with a collection, then you can actually, in this sense, then you can actually deposit an item such as this now in a collection. So you will use this link to access an item submission interface, and you just simply fill in and follow the instructions going next and so on. But now this is where we input the metadata, and we use the standards that we're talking about earlier. So I would encourage you to go to that link and take a look at the standards that are being proposed. And so the next time you start, it can be very useful. Now you can see this one will help you look out for the OCID, and in which you can start inputting your material, your metadata, sorry. So also, yeah, about people, you would use this access control to create people. And this is where you manage your e-people right there. And so you also will be able to create groups and so on and so forth. To do that, obviously, you always come here to groups, and then it will help you create groups. You will search for the people, give the group a name, and then you'll put people in that group and then assign them authorizations for what to do. The other thing is, as you notice here, there's always the anonymous, and that's pretty much everybody. But this group has some permissions, pretty much need at least to read. Something else that's important was these registries here. These registries are very important for the ones for the metadata. For those who are not familiar, this is where you would come actually to either make changes to a schema or something like that. And here you would find actually your metadata fields, and this is where you can actually edit them. And so also the formats, you'd find them here in this place. Somebody talked about, I think, a batch upload or something, if I remember, in one of the questions. I think this is where you would actually do that import, and you do the loading from right there. I think that's pretty much. I think there were questions about VuFind. Oh, sorry. Before I go there, this is the document I've been referring to, the one with the metadata guidelines. So at that link, you should find this. And so right down here, you find some notes and basically some proposals on how to treat your metadata. And then also the link to the Ugandan, sorry, this one, the Uganda DSpace group. If you don't mind, it's a good. There's slides here and a video for the Google indexing, Google Scholar indexing. It's a very good webinar by Monica Westing from Google, and I think it's something you should find very useful. There were questions about VuFind and Altimetrics. What I could say is that's integrating those into DSpace. I do know that you can configure these, but we haven't done it. But I think we will do it and then include it in our technical notes, and so send that. But it's something we hadn't quite done actually. But we know it is possible, and the notes are available online pretty much if you Google them. So then, just to say, there was someone from, I think, Saudi Arabia. He asked us to check out his repository from the open door, and just one or two comments. I don't recall what his question was, but I think he needs to clean up his URL, and I think we do have that in our technical notes. What I mean by that, his URL trails with a port number, and that's not very clean because it does mess you up in terms of indexing, so and access to your link. So you want to clean it up and have it without the trail of the port number. I think that's it from me. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to. I know it was a bit vague, but yes, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, David, sir. And I shared the link to a guide, sir, on how to make sure that your DSpace repository works really well. And there is a section there about integrating Altimetric donuts in the repository.
Yes.
And also, if you're interested, we could have another webinar about this and some other add-ons and tools that you can use for your DSpace repositories. So we have this planned under cool tools titles right. for DSpace sometime later this year. Right. I'll let you know when it's announced. So I don't see any questions except clarification question. Mm-hmm.
Now, this is the just advice for David. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I saw I think they are running Matomo inside the DSpace server itself. Yeah. And I have an opinion that having all of them together in the same system. At some point, you won't be able to notice when the server was down or whatever. So I think you should have it separate so that at least you should have a place where you can see that at this time to this time the server was not on and all that. Because currently, if the server went down, it's like even the analytics would just stop.
Goes down. Yes. Okay. That's true. Makes sense.
Yeah, and on top of that, I would also want to share with you because I'm using Google Analytics, but I want to use soon. I'll start using Matomo also. Yeah. Right. Now, if you don't mind, Irina, just 1 minute.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So this is our Google Analytics dashboard. And this is customized. And one thing that I hate, and I know why, because we have a lot of robots inside. which mess up with the statistics, and therefore it a bit. I don't know. Maybe I need to get some more assistance from someone. I mean, like, because if you look at it, you can see the live users right now at this time. We have like 28 users who are on the system right now, and we have the map in the location. Is just to tell, I mean, to show other users apart from the Matomo, which if David shared, but if they don't have a lot of, I mean, if they feel like they want to use the Google Analytics, it's also very easy to use, and yeah, just need to get it done properly, I should say. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, great. Thank you. That was very good.
That was very good.
Maybe also there was a question. Someone asked about changing the theme to from maybe JSP UI to XML UI or Mirage, yeah, and then they lost their customization. The reason behind that is because all customizations for different themes are saved in different folders, things like images and I think even the CSS files. So for different themes, you have to do different customizations for them. I hope it answers the question. It was someone called Ido, something like that. Thank you.
Thanks, Fred. Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted us to answer that question.
Okay.
So sorry we went a bit over time, but as you saw, we received a lot of questions and we had a lot to cover. So I don't see any new questions, sir. So I guess we could stop recording now.
Okay, I think that's about it.